Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
Are you feeling down or depressed? I urge you to talk to someone. Pray. Don't hold it in. We are going to be okay. Hang in there. Hang on. We're not done riding this horse yet. Please. We're going to be okay. Here comes Kate Smith and God Bless America, followed by a Patriot to call in with our Pledge of Allegiance. Come on, Patriots. Good morning, good morning. And good morning to you. Come on, let's all keep a stiff upper lip and everything's going to be A-OK. I'm Zeb Bell, Zeb at the Ranch, with our program this morning on this Wednesday, March 25th. And our major sponsor, your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers. Great people serving you with the best of tires with a great big spring tire sale at all 7 locations. You stop in and see them today, along with our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. And Greystone Crossing Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Heyburn. Seniors living the good life with friends. Right now, let's go to the phone line and have our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
Good morning. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done. Thank you, Linda. God bless you. Have a wonderful day, okay?
Thank you, and your opening words are beautiful.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Right now it's time for the weather, and I believe that Gina's going to give it to us this morning. And K&R Rental with Roger and the crew. Roger Wilco and out at 256 South, 600 West in Heyburn, right there on the Burley-Paul Highway. You can't miss them. I'm telling you, they're pretty obvious. And they've got all the power rakes, all the garden and lawn equipment, all your rototillers. All think spring, think about getting outside and getting all dirty. I love it. And they've got all the equipment for both long and short-term rental. K&R Rental. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Typical spring day for this midweek. Here's a look at what we can expect. Slight chance of rain and or snow showers by the afternoon. Partly sunny skies. A little bit of a breeze. Expecting a high of 46 tonight. Clouds could be rolling in. We are looking at a low of 27. Wind gusts as high as 22 miles an hour. Then for tomorrow, partly sunny skies. Expecting a high of 45. By Friday, mostly sunny and 47. That's a look at your weather forecast.
No, thank you, Gina. Thank you much. And don't forget, for the best of tools and equipment you need for any kind of a task. Hey, listen, in case you're not sure what you need, and maybe you say to yourself or your wife or whatever, hey, listen, I don't know what to do. Well, call them at K&R Rental, 678-3122. They'll help you on the Burley-Paul Highway, K&R Rental. Want to also give a great big shout out to some folks that not only have they been on this program for almost 20 years with me, but they're my friends, and I really appreciate them. Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. And, you know, it goes without saying that any business that has been in business for nearly 7 decades, wow, that's a lot of respect, a lot of work, and a lot of experience experience and excellence, so you can depend on them for all your heating, cooling, and electrical needs, and I mean that. Call them 678-0459 or stop in 7:30 to 5 Monday through Friday. Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. I'm going to do things a little differently this morning in this first hour. I have put together a compilation of stories that you probably will not hear on the very biased, liberal, sleazy media, the CNNs, the MSNBCs, etc. And I'm just going to give you some headlines and some facts on these various stories. And let's see how many of these you hear about at the end of the day, okay? So I doubt any of the other media is going to carry that. So we'll tell you some of those in just a minute. I want to take just a moment, and I mean this sincerely. We need to support the businesses that have supported us. Okay? Plain and simple. And I'm going to give you an example right now. Denny's Restaurant with Thomas, Michelle, the whole crew at 611 North Overland in Burley. And they've got another location at 291 Pole Line Road in Twin Falls. I urge you to call for takeouts and curbside pickup. Honestly, all my lunch bunchers, I'm just really asking you to help support these folks right now. They've always been there for us. Now it's time that we're there for them. Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley, and all you got to do is call 678-8786. I'll say the number again, 678-8786. Call them, schedule to have a takeout, pickup, curbside delivery at Denny's Restaurant. Things are going to get a lot better. We're going to be back there in full voice here before too long, but please, let's support our businesses. Denny's Restaurant, America's Diner. Absolutely. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
The seniors have a takeout. You drive up to the door. They'll come out, take your order and your money, and bring you lunch to go. Today is roast beef and potatoes and gravy and a vegetable, and I don't know when I'll have a yummy dessert.
Okay. Joe, we'll tell everybody. Joe, what's the number over there to call?
Pardon?
I said, what is the telephone number to call over there, Joe?
Oh, that's a good idea. It's 208-878-8646.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much for your call this morning, and we'll send everybody over to the Senior Center. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
all right. Thank you. Joe Taylor, thank you very much, in the Senior Center on Overland in Burley. Here, listen to this. I don't care. I don't care. Those words came from Nancy Pelosi yesterday after she got annoyed with a TV host asking her about Donald Trump's coronavirus response. And she said, I don't have time to follow people's twits and tweets and Twitters, whatever tweets, so don't expect me to comment on that. And then the host of this program, a Donna Bash, said, well, even beyond Twitter, the President of the United States is signaling that he could open it up. And I'll put a paraphrase there, talking about opening up the country. And then Pelosi said, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. She said it 3 times. Well, Donna Bash continued and said, what is your opinion on that? And then here's what Pelosi said. My opinion is that it is not scientific based. He's notion mongering, as he does almost every day, Pelosi said. So rather than waste any time commenting on the president, I would rather spend our time focusing on the fact that any president or anybody with responsibility should be scientifically inclined, evidence-based data, what is going to make the difference. You see, this is what bugs me about the Democrats and their absolutely irresponsible comments. Every single day, I don't even have to verify this. You can tell it by yourself. Every single day at approximately 3 p.m. Eastern Time or 4 p.m. Eastern Time, they have a press conference at the White House. And you will see President Trump, Vice President Pence, and all the scientific medical people that will go up to the podium and give you an update as to what is going on and what is not going on, how the coronavirus is affecting certain areas and not others. And for Pelosi to come out with a statement that's saying his opinions are not scientific based, again, Nancy Pelosi has served too long and needs to be led to the rocking chair. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes. Good morning, Zeb. The Dragon Lady and her lapdog, Chuck Schumer, have plenty of food on their plates, plenty of protection from the police. They don't give a damn about the rest of the people like you and I.
I can't argue that.
Collect their plates and plates of food and complain about what they don't have, what they need more of, which is power.
Yeah. No, Nancy Pelosi, I have, and I mean this, I'm not going to mince words, I have no respect for her whatsoever as the former Speaker of the House. And, she is the Speaker of the House, pardon me. I'm thinking of the Senate with McConnell and Schumer and everybody else. But Nancy Pelosi is a power monger. And her Christmas tree, candy under the Christmas tree bill that she wanted to pass and might still try to push through the House this morning, Tony, is one that needs to be stomped on, ripped up, and thrown in the garbage can.
Well, excuse me. She doesn't care that we could very easily be held hostage by China and not get any of our medication.
Yep.
Our farms are closing down, and we may be held hostage for food from foreign countries. Our cities are being taken over by foreigners, and they're sitting back there enjoying all the safety, all the food that they ever want. They don't give a damn about the rest of us.
Well, I'll tell you what, the give a damn attitude that you mentioned is one that we've seen come from the swamp in Washington, D.C. for a long time, to where we basically are being looked down from above by the holy elites that treat us as peons. And this is one peon that's not going to stand there and take it anymore. And I don't care if it's somebody from the state of Idaho. I don't care if it's Mike Simpson. I don't care if it's Mike Crapo. I couldn't care less who it is. I'm not going to stand and kowtow or bow to them. They work for us. I don't work for them.
Well, I am so glad that we have Donald Trump up there, because if we had gotten another Democrat instead of Donald Trump, we would have lost this country already.
I totally agree. Yeah. Totally agree. Tony, and I hope that can be averted. Tony, God bless you and Mary. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zeb.
All right, sir. Thanks. Calls are welcome. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I've got another story here about former Vice President Joe Biden that literally, whether he didn't have the mental capacity to tell the truth or whether he just lied again. And again, I will say, I doubt if you'll hear too much of these stories on the national media. We'll get to that one in just a moment. Dino Septic Service, don't forget septic tank pumping. Oh, now with the warmer temperatures and everything, your septic tank is just not emptying out and everything. You got a problem. And you better call our friends at Dino Septic Service. And the number to call, 436-6526 or 678-1638. Listen, let me tell you something. They're there with fast, fair, friendly service. They get the job done. I know because they've worked for us. These folks are excellent. Backhoe services, water and sewer lines installed. Absolutely. Dino's Septic Service. Remember that, with a big truck that says, smells cargo on the way to serve you. Dino's Septic Service. Here, this really bugs me about Joe Biden, and he gets away with it. Our local newspaper, every Sunday, devotes a bottom half of the left page of one of their various parts of the paper to fact-checking Donald Trump. And they go out of their way to prove the president might have said this or slipped up on this or whatever. Why not do a little fact-checking on old Joe Biden there, Times News and other media outlets? Because I'm going to give you 5 examples just recently, of how Joe Biden has been pushing misinformation. Now, I'm going to be kind. I'm going to say misinformation instead of just using the blatant term lies in his political attacks against President Donald Trump. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Number 1, Biden has been dinged by a lot of fact checkers after he falsely accused Donald Trump of cutting the budget for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC. I heard that remark on TV here a couple of nights ago. But wait a minute. Here's what Biden said, and he was quoted by saying this. We increased the budget, meaning the Obama administration. We increased the budget of the CDC. We increased the NIH budget. He's referring to Donald Trump, wiped all that out. He cut the funding for the entire effort. Oh, but wait a minute. That's not true. The Associated Press did a fact check and they said those comments are wrong. And the agencies, they're both wrong to say the agencies have seen their money cut because that has not occurred. Okay, fact check number 1. Let's go to number 2. Biden falsely said Trump rejected World Health Organization tests. He said that Donald Trump rejected the coronavirus test from the World Health Organization, and here's the quote. The World Health Organization offered the testing kits that they have available to us now. We refused them. We did not want to buy them, Joe Biden said. But PolitiFact did some fact-checking, and that was another Biden lie. Then Joe Biden's campaign had a video that falsely said Trump called the coronavirus, a hoax. Remember this? This was just a matter of a few days ago. Excuse me. And they went after Donald Trump saying that he had said it was a hoax. Hold on. Joe Biden spread the false claim that Trump referred to the virus as a hoax at the February 28th campaign rally in South Carolina, but that's not true. In reality, President Trump said that the Democrats' political reaction to the virus was a hoax. Oh, so what the Biden campaign did was cut and clip and paste and change the remarks and set it out so that the president seemed to have said this. The video makes it seem like Trump is calling the disease itself a hoax, which he has not done. The words are Trump's, but the editing is Biden's, said PolitiFact, claiming that Joe Biden lied again. I got to do a commercial break, and then I'm going to tell you some more of what's going on. I mean, do not believe what you hear on these absolutely ridiculous news networks like CBS, ABC, CNN, MSNBC, NBC. They are absolutely distorted and lies. Stand by. Also want to remind you, too, about our friends at Magic Valley Irrigation. And big shout out to Jeff and the crew. They are ready. I mean, they've got their track shoes on and they're ready to run this spring to serve all of your irrigation needs. All you gotta do is give them a call at two numbers, 678-3101 or 431-3101. Magic Valley Irrigation at 44 East, 500 South of Burley, and they can do it all. I'm telling you, these are really good people that are experts in their field helping you. Magic Valley Irrigation, 678-3101. Calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Don't forget, too, on Mondays, we give away a dozen cookies to Sophie's Chatterbox, and I urge you to be tuned in at 8:30 in the morning on Monday. And if you're the lucky trivia winner, you will receive those cookies from Sophie's Chatterbox at 530 East Street in Rupert. What a bakery. Oh, what a restaurant at Sophie's Chatterbox. Absolutely. Let's go to another lie of Joe Biden and his campaign. The Biden campaign falsely accused Donald Trump of silencing a CDC official. Biden's campaign produced a video falsely accusing President Trump of silencing a CDC official who warned the public about coronavirus. But the Washington Post noted in a fact check that was not true at all. In the video, Biden campaign advisor Ron Klain claimed the Trump administration silenced career CDC official Nancy Messonnier, and Klain claimed that Messonnier had been sidelined from briefing reporters after delivering a widely discussed warning about the virus's impact on American lives. But Klain's framing of the Messonnier situation is simply wrong. The Washington Post found out that this was deserving of another lie or another Pinocchio to be attributed to the Biden campaign. And then the one that happened on The View. Folks, another lie by old Lonesome Joe. Joe Biden was on The View this week, yesterday I believe it was, and said that he has not criticized Trump on the coronavirus campaign that's going on in this country. But that's not true. It's another lie. He said yesterday, I've not been criticizing the president, but I've been pointing out where there's disagreements as to how to proceed, Biden said yesterday on TV. But again, another Pinocchio, because he said just about a week ago, Donald Trump is wholly unfit to lead this nation, and that has never become clearer than in the last few weeks of this coronavirus. See, this is what I'm talking about. Lies, lies, lies. And you got to really be careful. You got to really be careful about what you buy into with these politicians, both sides of the aisle. Both sides of the aisle. But these lies are getting worse and worse. And every day, something more is heaped at the door of the White House where people are blaming and condemning Donald Trump for things that he has no power over or anything to do with. I'll give you an example. How many of you heard, and this was unbelievable to my wife and I when we heard this yesterday and followed up on it, that a husband and wife, and I'm paraphrasing because I, for the life of me, in my very well-organized desk, I can't find the story I had on this, but husband and wife in Arizona, they took, listen to this, they took a chemical that is used for fish tank cleaning and drank it because they misread the label and supposedly thought that the label contained a drug similar to a drug that has been given successfully to stop coronavirus. The man died. The woman was in the hospital. So what does the media do? CNN, MSNBC, and others. Oh, these are lynch mobs, let me tell you. Trump killed a man with his statements. Trump did this and Trump did that. No, he did not. When the doctors, Dr. Fauci and others, were standing up there at that press conference the other night, they used that drug name at least, when I listened to the press conference, 20 times. But with this man, who he and his wife must have been bordering on absolute lunacy, to go and drink a fish tank, a fish bowl cleaner, and then the media blames it on Donald Trump. My grandmother would say, as she said so many times, ay, 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 ay. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Come on, folks, I want to hear from you, so give me a jingle on the landline. And what's it, Sleepy Fingers this morning? Come on, put your finger on the numbers and go 1-208-436-2244. Give me a call. I would love to hear from you. And ask and thou shalt receive. Good morning, you're on the air.
Anytime, my friend.
Yes.
Yeah, the level of hatred for President Trump is showing. They are out on display. They don't care if they try to hide it. They are showing it, just like the Democrats are showing their hatred for Americans. It's so obvious.
Well, let me ask you a question, Doug. All those 5 lies that I read to you in regards to former Vice President Joe Biden, in regards to becoming the president and defeating President Trump, let me turn the tables a little bit and get your response. If Donald Trump had said any one of those things about Joe Biden, do you think maybe it might be on the headline news?
It would be 24/7 nonstop. Just like if, say, Donald Jr. flew over on Air Force One and got a big billion-dollar deal from China 10 days later, it would be 24/7 nonstop.
Yeah. I've never seen anything like this. I mean, okay, now, Doug, you're a straight shooter. You're a small business owner, and you're a hard worker and very supportive of seniors and their events, etc. But when you sit down and you hear stories about a man and wife in Arizona that very unfortunately and very stupidly drank a container of fishbowl cleaner because they mistook on the label a drug similar to a drug that's been given successfully for coronavirus, and then the media blames Donald Trump for murder? What?
Well, that... You got to remove all the warning labels and we'll clean up the gene pool. But those people that did that, they done it on their own. President Trump did not go down there and tell them this is the stuff to drink and pour it down their throat. It was their choice. They tried to cure themselves instead of going to a professional and getting some help from a doctor. They tried to do it themselves.
Yeah, but we're in the realm of anything that is sane, and wheels turn up, Doug, when he's talking just a little bit. Where in the world of sanity would anybody, I mean, would you and your beautiful wife sit down after supper tonight and say, oh, gee, dear, I think we should ward off coronavirus, and I just happen to know that when I cleaned the fish tank this afternoon, I looked down the label, and this fishbowl cleaner contains that particular drug. Let's take it and drink it and see if we can stop the virus. How many people would do such an insane thing?
Not many, and it sounds like they'd only do it once.
Yeah.
I mean, but to blame that on President Trump is so hypocritical. It's beyond belief. And just like Nancy Pelosi, what she said, that she come up with 1,100-page help bill, to help with this coronavirus.
Oh, yeah.
Over the weekend, 1,100 pages.
Yep.
Is a crock.
Let's be exact here, Doug, my dear friend. 1,119 pages.
Well, I stand to be correct.
Well, I know that you wanted to be exact. And, of course, in this bill that was nothing but sugar candy for the left, bailing out the Postal Service, requiring, there's a word that scares me, requiring early voting, same-day voter registration, requiring the airlines to fully offset their carbon emissions, giving you a chance to look up your greenhouse emissions. Come on!
Exactly. Not one word of that bill helped anything with coronavirus. That's their Green New Deal that they want to push through. They want to put solar panels on airplanes to fly them electrically.
And
give me a break. You got to have some more than 3 brain cells to figure out that the Democrats are wanting to tear this country down and bring it down to nothing. I mean, you look at Pelosi and Schumer and the Democrats, what they have done over the last, say, 20 years. They've sold 20% of our uranium to who? Russia.
oh my, yes.
The one that they say is controlling Donald Trump. They are saying the drug cartel, the MS-13, do not need to be deported.
Yeah.
I mean, what they are doing is trying to take this nation into a godless nation and into a lawless nation so that they can take over and be supreme leaders.
You know, Brit Hume, I have a lot of respect for old Brit. He's been in journalism for a long, long time. And his comments about Nancy Pelosi, the Democrats, and the incompetency that's going on back in Washington, D.C., bear listening to and reading about every single day. And he said, quote, "I can't read the minds of people I don't know, but there's one thing I do suspect in all of this in terms of the reactions that are going on. We are living in a country in which people's reactions to nearly everything have something to do when you drill down with how they feel about Donald Trump. And to the extent that what the lieutenant governor, he's talking about the lieutenant governor of Texas, said on the air last night about everybody should be going back to work is similar to the overall message to what Donald Trump has been saying. I think some of the reaction to it may flow from that." In other words, what he was saying is the left runs around with their hair on fire the minute anybody tries to say, listen, our economy, our country is very important, and we've got to get back to work as soon as possible. And the Democrats are just tearing their hair over those statements.
Exactly. Yes, and they're saying that President Trump's lying when he said he'd love to have everything going back to normal on Easter. And they take that and they say he's saying an impossible timeline. There's no way this can happen. And when he didn't say it was going to happen, he said he would love to have it happen by
Absolutely. Then. And he said 3 or 4 times, not only in the Rose Garden with that meeting yesterday afternoon with Fox's Bill Hemmer, but then also at that press conference last night, again, another one of their press conferences on the coronavirus, that when they sit down and they analyze where they're at and how they are doing. And he said with all the people that are there, Dr. Fauci, all of those people, then they will make a concentrated effort to come up with a good opinion as to what to do and when to do it. I mean, he didn't say that definitely they're going to do it by Easter. It was he hopes to do it by then.
Yes, and another photo I seen that just the liberal heads just exploded over was when Vice President Pence and the coronavirus team, every time they sit down and have a meeting, they pray before the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
And that has just exploded the liberal heads. I mean, they're going off, they don't believe in science, is what they're saying, because they pray before every meeting.
You know, I question where we're going to be if a Democrat takes over the Oval Office. I question whether I would have this program. I question whether churches would still be in effect. I question whether any sanity would be left for moral and family values. I really wonder what's going to happen. That party of hate, that party of evil cannot be put in power.
No, it can't. And if America falls, everybody out there, listen to this. If America falls, where is the next safe haven in the world to protect your rights from God?
Not going to happen, buddy.
I mean, I won't hold my breath for an answer, but I'll wait for one.
All right. Well, listen, Doug, I always appreciate your call, man. I got to get a weather on, but thank you. Stay safe, put a smile on your face, and don't drink anything just because you read the label wrong.
Okay, I got one quick thing I'd like to put on the air for everybody to grab your pencil and a piece of paper. Mr. Simpson's phone number is 202-225-5531. Mr. Craple's phone number, 202-224-6142. Mr. Risch, 202-224-2752. And the White House switchboard to let President Trump know how you feel he's doing is 202-456-1111.
Yeah, and there's another number I'm going to add to the fray this morning in regards to bills that are very important for the state of Idaho and moral decency, and that's Governor Brad Little's number, 208-334-2100.
2100.
There you go.
All right, and that's for that bill with no boys can play girls?
Well, it's for both bills, 500 and 509 on the gender change on the driver's license.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we got to stay on that, and supposedly he's going to have a deadline to possibly veto those bills, which I've already called numerous times. Don't do it. Those bills need to go in effect, and he's looking at March 31st. So, Doug, got to run. I am late. God bless you, man. Thank you.
Take care of our senior centers.
Yes, sir. All right. Don't forget Barry Equipment and Rental, Sales, Service, and Parts, 159 West Highway 30 in Burley, 465 Addison Avenue West in Twin, and the Nampa location. All of those locations have new inventory for this year, and they are going to serve you with all the equipment you need for lifting and digging and pushing and carrying and grading and leveling. Oh my. They've got it all. The Doosan wheel loaders and excavators. All the Bobcats in all shapes and sizes. Woo, buddy, what are you waiting for? Get in there and see them. Spring is here, even though Gina called for some snow in the next day or so. But spring is here. Stop into Barry Equipment and Rental, Burley, Twin Falls, and Nampa. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. $2 trillion. I can't even wrap my mind around these numbers. $2 trillion stimulus bill. I got to say that again. I don't have that easily roll off my tongue. $2 trillion stimulus bill. I read someplace, and I got to go find that sheet, the comparisons of what a billion or a million, a billion, and a trillion is. And how it equates to, like, how many times around the world or from here to the moon or Mars or whatever. I got to study that. $2 trillion stimulus bill. Right now, time for the weather. Weather brought to you by our dear friends at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Absolutely. They care. They really care. That's the one thing I've noticed the times I've been over there. They really care about your hearing health. And if you've noticed that your hearing has been diminished, I urge you. I really do. I did it. I went over there and had a hearing screening test. And absolutely the best thing I've done. 312-0957, the number to call. They're right behind the Minidoka Hospital, across from the emergency room. Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Typical spring day for this midweek. Here's a look at what we can expect. Slight chance of rain and or snow showers by the afternoon. Partly sunny skies. A little bit of a breeze. Expecting a high of 46 tonight. Clouds could be rolling in. We are looking at a low of 27. Wind gusts as high as 22 miles an hour. Then for tomorrow, partly sunny skies. Expecting a high of 45. By Friday, mostly sunny and 47. That's a look at your weather forecast for Zeb at the Ranch.
Thank you, Gina. Good to have you back doing the weather again. Scotty did a great job. Anyhow, thank you to our friends at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Yes, sirree. They absolutely want to make sure that your hearing is right up where it should be. And for expert diagnostic testing, you get a hold of them today. Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, 312-0957. You know what kind of bothers me a little bit is more people aren't calling in this morning, and I'd love to hear your opinions on what's going on or not going on with this coronavirus and things that have been said and, quite frankly, things that have not been said. And a couple of things that bother me every day in the news. I would like your response on this. What happened to all the other world problems? Did they all of a sudden just dry up and blow away? Not to be seen or heard from again? I doubt it. What happened to our fears and trepidations with North Korea? What happened to our fears with Iran and nuclear purchases and experimentation? What happened to Russia and some of the things that they were trying to do under the table and cause trouble? All of a sudden, all those news stories seem to have been eliminated because of coronavirus. Caller, what are your thoughts? Good morning. You're on the air.
You're quite right. I wonder about some of those other stories. And thank you very, very much for diminishing my faith in human race this morning. Why can we not see what the Democrats are doing? Why have they been allowed to stay in? Some of those guys like Pelosi and Schumer and that bunch, why have they been allowed to stay in forever?
You know, that's a loaded question, and you could attack that question from various ways. Number one, they seem to have a complete hold of dominance in the voting areas where they come from. I don't understand that either. They seem to have a growing list of power, like wielding a scepter in one hand and a 357 in another. I don't know where they get all this power. I don't know why others haven't stood up to them. I don't know.
Well, I wonder if some people, there are people out there, so my college Western Civ teacher told us, and I think she's right, that are true believers that will follow any cause. And I wonder if these guys sound so powerful and so caring about America and so in with current ideas that the true believers don't just follow them.
You know, though, I think you will follow this, Linda, and agree with me. And this is good old Zeb and Linda talking about something right now, and we'll see if others agree. You know as well as I do that when you have people that stand up and issue diatribes about something or against something, or they come out with a philosophy like a case in point, socialism, there are people, especially the younger generation, that seem to climb aboard that freight train and say, oh, goody, free college, free this, and let me hand my tin cup out so the government can fill it up. And I think the same premise with Pelosi and Schumer and others, they just have followers that are expecting a free ride. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. There are probably multiple things that cause people to want to follow them, but yes, I think so, and not thinking where the money's going to come from.
And the other word that comes in on all of these conversations when you're talking to people that are in political positions is the 5-letter word power. Power. I have witnessed this over the many years I've done this program. I have seen this happening to where it is power and control and power. They're back to back, joined at the hip all the time when these people take an establishment of being part of the swamp in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, you've had a lot of experience and you've been around a while, and I appreciate your information.
Well, in other words, that was a very kind way of saying you're an old man, Zeb. Yes, I am.
Well, Zeb, I'm only a little older than you.
Hey, God bless you. Linda, thank you so much.
God bless you.
All right, thank you very much. I love that lady. She is something special. My wife just walked in and handed me a little note that didn't make me feel real good here this morning at Zeb at the Ranch Studios. It's snowing outside. Ay, vey. Well, hopefully it won't last long. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Oh, listen to that silver-throated tone of that dial tone. Wheels, what'd you do to them? Where did they run to?
To be honest, it was Mr. Driscoll, but I'm hoping he'll call. Oh, give me 1 second.
I will do that. 1 second's up. Thank you very much. Let's take this call. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Hello, caller.
Hello, Zeb.
Yes.
Just back to your money situation just for a second. If you took $1 million and put it in one pile in $100 bills, okay, if you took $1 million and put it in a pile in $100 bills, that's 17 pounds. So let's take 1,000 piles of $1 million in each pile. Now, I'll repeat it again. 1,000 piles of $1 million in each pile. We'll put it in the football stadium. There's 1,000 piles. That's $1 billion with a B. So if you took 1 billion piles with a B, 1,000 piles of 1 billion in a football stadium, 1,000 piles of 1 billion in each pile, that's 1 trillion. And you can do the math, because then $1 billion would be 17,000 pounds.
Holy!
If $1 million in one pile is 17 pounds. Then if you took all that and you times it by 1,000, that'd be 17,000 pounds would be $1 billion. Isn't that astronomical?
I got to ask you a question. What do you do for a living?
I am a custodian.
Well, you're also very sharp, and you must have been burning up the keys on your calculator, and I am not about to question whether or not you're right or wrong, because it's astounding to me where you came up with all of this. All I can say is, now that you've explained that to me, I am even more wary, scared, and worried about $2 trillion more in debt.
Yeah, so you could take all those. I won't go any further, but you understand how it would exponentially just go nuts. It's 1 trillion with a T.
And it just goes to show you, too, doesn't it, sir, that when you start talking trillions and you start talking about being already $20+ trillion in debt in this country, and then the assumption of $2 trillion more, and then over the years with the debt reduction that's not happening, trying to borrow more money, holy moly, do your figures on that and call me back.
It's just astounding. It's almost mind-blowing that 1,000 piles of 1 billion in each pile would be 1 trillion, and then you times that by 23 trillion we're in debt with. It just is astronomical. It's like trying to figure out the end of space, outer space.
You have just blown my mind for the rest of the day. God bless you for your call. Thank you. I do appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right, sir. Wow, he has been busy figuring all this. Hey, I want to remind you about some really good folks that care and they serve you, and that's all 7 of your Magic Valley Les Schwab tire centers. They care about the safety of their customers, the health of their customers, and that's first and foremost on their minds. They really care, and they want to serve you at each and all the 7 locations with the best of tires, the best of brake service, and, of course, front-end alignment, shocks and struts, batteries, all of this and more. And right now, is a great big spring tire sale. I'm in a big one. And you can save money and make sure you get all the tires you need for your safe driving this spring and summer. For your car, pickup, SUV, horse trailer, boat trailer, whatever, you better stop in and see these people that really care about you. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Daniel on Poline in Twin Falls, and Trent on Overland in Burley. They care. And they take care of you, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Going to take a run to the news from CBS, coming back with Dave Bego in about 7 minutes. God bless you. Here's Wheels with some music. We'll be back. Oh, good morning, Zeb at the Ranch on a Wednesday, March 25th. And, of course, brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations really serving you with a great big, I mean really big, spring tire sale. You better get in there and see them today. Along with some of our other great advertisers, Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. And, of course, Greystone Crossing Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Hayburn. Seniors living the good life with friends. Right now, this good word for Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're all at the Georgia disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this free land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal.
Western Waste Services, and I urge you, I told you that last week I had one of the dumpsters brought in so that we could do some spring cleaning and throwing and opening the door and saying goodbye. Well, I'll tell you what, it's really easy to fill one of those things up, and I urge you to call them and check on. They've got dumpsters in various sizes. Number to call, 734-6969. Always at your disposal, and let me tell you, we've been pitching and throwing for the last 3 days. Western Waste Services, 734-6969. You call them today. I also want to take just a moment and say a great big shout out and thank you to folks that really, they really care. They really take care of you and help you get back to being you. And that's our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Folks are doing all they can possibly do to make sure their facility is always as clean and impeccable for you to get the care that you need in the exercise programs to recoup from surgery or accidents, whatever. I'm going back in there Monday and start up on my knee again. I want to see you there too at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Number to call, 678-1191. Right now, let's go to the phone line on a Wednesday, and one of these days, if he ever aims the plane west, I hope that we can aim our plane east and meet up and sit down and have probably all the wine that I can take on the trip, because I owe him a bundle. Dave Bego, Indianapolis, Indiana.
Good morning, Zeb. How you doing?
Not bad. How are things back in the heartland?
Well, we're doing pretty good here. I think we've got more cases than you have out there, but we've only had 477 in the state. And we've had 14 deaths from it here in Indiana.
Okay.
It's still not a huge thing here in the state, but the governor here, starting yesterday, quarantined off everybody, and everybody has to stay home, and only business that are what he calls essential businesses can stay open, and so there's a lot of people not working here right now. And actually, it's not too bad an idea today because it's 11 o'clock here, and it's still so foggy outside right now you can hardly see across the street.
Dave, you have always been kind of a cool hand Luke when it comes to discussing various issues and have a calming effect, if you will, on various issues. What did you think about the president, excuse me, and what he said yesterday in the Rose Garden and then again at the press conference for the coronavirus? They have one every day in the White House. What about the optimism of hopefully in maybe a matter of days, Easter was a projected time of trying to get segments of our society, segments of our geography in this country back to work and being productive again?
I think I agree with him. I think he's on the right track because, this hasn't as big a spread across this country as it has, and we've only had 55,000 cases in the United States compared to, China and Italy and other places, and and he's keeping those people out of the country, and I think that's the big part of it. But I think he needs to get the industry back going again and businesses going back again as soon as possible because it's hurting people. It really is.
Dave, and I don't mean to sound crass when I say this, but I think you'll appreciate why I use this phraseology. President Trump, in all aspects of what's been done in his tenure as president, he has been damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. And this situation is right to the forefront, right in the spotlight of the left tearing their hair out and trying to crucify him and yell and scream and call him names and anything else about his handling of the coronavirus. And then yet at the same time, his approval numbers have skyrocketed to the highest level yet at over 60%. So where do you draw any sanity out of that?
Because I think the American people have woken up and they're smart and understand that the media and the left are controlling this and blowing it up way out of proportion, and that Trump has handled things good, and they also, he knows that he's trying to protect them from this stuff, but he also wants to get them back to work and get the economy back, rising again and be as good as it was, and I think they appreciate all this stuff. We're on the other side of the aisle. All the left does, and the media and that, and is just use all this as tactics to try and bring Trump down in the presidential election.
I don't mean to put you in the spotlight, and certainly you don't have to respond if you don't want to, but as a business owner, a big business owner, how have these cutbacks affected you, or is it an ongoing every day lower and lower, or what's going on in your world? I mean, give us from the entrepreneur businessman standpoint, what's going on with you?
Well, you got to understand, our industry is one that's still recognized as essential, so our people can still go to work and go out because, we can sanitize and clean buildings and provide products to help people sanitize and stuff like that from our supply company and everything. So, in some areas, our people are working overtime because they want us to do more than we've done in the past as far as the sanitizing part of it. We do have a few customers that have shut down their buildings, but even last week, we had one that shut down over in Ohio. That was a 300,000 square foot building, but they told our managers, they said, we want your people in there and we want you to sanitize the place from ceiling to floor. And our people have been in there doing that, and they've gotten a lot of praise for it.
What kind of new or innovative equipment or devices have you had to employ to take care of this?
Well, we've got these, and we've used them before, but we're using them even more. They're a spray system that we can go through and spray down everything in a building, ceiling, walls, everything, with disinfectants and virus and bacteria killers, and so it's a good way of hitting everything, and so we're using more of those than we have in the past.
You know, they say, and again, I know you're up on this type of thing because of your business, but they say that perhaps, underline that word perhaps, the coronavirus will mutate and change or distort itself into another form. What are your concerns about that in regards to your chemicals and your processes of trying to keep everything clean and sanitary?
I don't think it would make a difference because what we use will go in and sanitize and get rid of all that stuff. So, the big thing is we want to keep our employees working too, because it's good for them. But we want to make sure that we have the products, and this is the biggest problem we have right now, is getting the products like hand sanitizers and sanitizing wipes and disinfectants and other things like that, because they have just been scrounged all over the country by people. And we even had a customer here in Indianapolis that we've been cleaning their facility for 27 years, and they ordered 1,000 cases of hand sanitizer from us.
Oh my! 1,000 cases.
Our warehouse over here is empty right now with all this stuff, and we had to order it, and they said, well, it'll be 3 or 4 weeks before we can get it to you so you can give it to your customer.
Dave.
And this is the real problem we're having in this country right now.
Absolutely. But now let me ask you a very poignant question in regards to the processing and the manufacturing of those products. Are all these products manufactured here in the United States, or are you relying on foreign imports?
A lot of these are manufactured here in this country. So, I think there's some that are foreign imports, but a lot of them are being manufactured here, which is good for us.
Boy, there's so many intricacies of what you're having to do and how you're doing it. I would imagine that, without even knowing you or your business, but I would imagine that you almost have to have daily meetings to keep up with everything that's going on, or perhaps transitions in what has to be done or how it has to be done. Explain that just a little bit.
Well, we're talking every day. Because it's not just people here in our office. It's across the country and that, and so we have phone conversations, and and then we, as all this stuff, more stuff comes out, we're changing emails back and forth on how we do things, and it's to make sure that we're on top of stuff and that we're following the government's guidelines and all that kind of stuff. So it's been a crazy world, I can tell you. And the other thing we have to do, and we got to get all of our employees to sign off, is we had to have our in-house attorney put together a letter that they sign and they carry with them, so that when they're coming into work at different buildings and that they have the approval to come into those buildings for this, and but it's a government requirement.
Oh my!
So, all of our employees across the country, we've had to get these letters out to and have them sign them and keep them in their vehicle. Because the other part is, if they get stopped by the police could go after them for not staying home, but they had to show them these letters and show them why they're out there doing this.
Oh, my goodness sakes. Which leads me, I wish we had more time this morning, but which leads me to ask you as a...
Let me just tell you what I just picked one of these letters up. I was looking for one.
Okay.
But it's called a Notice of Status Critical Infrastructure Worker. And that's what our cleaners and our managers and everybody else out there are.
Wow. Let me ask you this question then. Last night, after a couple of days of haranguing with the Democrats and Pelosi and Schumer and the Democrats wanting to add a whole bunch of bells and whistles and candy to the stimulus package last night, and I have not had a chance to read the thing in its entirety. I'm going to do that right after the program this morning. But supposedly the Senate passed their version of what would be acceptable. Now it goes to the House, and I don't trust Nancy Pelosi as far as I can throw a Volkswagen. What are your thoughts about that stimulus program?
Well, I think that what they came up with last night, I've read some of it, looks like it's pretty good. And, of course, it doesn't have all the Democratic stuff in there that they want. And again, all the stuff they want in there is just to lure voters for the 2020 election.
Right.
And that's what that's all about. It's not about taking care of this pandemic that we have.
Does it, as a businessman, give you a lot of trepidation that it is an automatic punch in the face of over $2 trillion?
It's sad that that's what we have to do, but again, I think we need to do the right thing for the American people. But I think the biggest thing we need to do, Zeb, is we just need to get people back to work.
Yeah.
And tell them to be very conscious about staying away from other people 6 to 8 feet, and washing your hands all the time, and and if you see somebody that's sneezing or coughing, get away from them. And businesses that have people that are sneezing, coughing, send them home. But we got to get our businesses back to work.
When we say that, and I totally agree with you, believe me, you're not finding any arbitration with me. I agree with Donald Trump and many of his staff that, this virus, very deadly, very serious. But, underline the word but, you and I talked last week about the severity of the flu strains that are in this country, that every year kill thousands upon thousands upon thousands around the world, and there was never the pandemic fear or the scares or the trepidations like what we're seeing with this. And again, I'm not minimizing anybody's death. I'm not minimizing anybody's ill health. But I think we have to put, a little bit more common sense into this. Tell me where I'm wrong.
No, you're exactly right, Zeb. But again, this comes back to the far left, and comprised of the unions and Soros and other people and other groups that are trying to bring this country down. And they see this as an opportunity to really, attack Trump and try and make him look bad, so they get him out of office.
Yeah, but. And then the media. I've got to ask you about this media, because I really do.
I'm sorry, I was going to say that. In the media, they're the forefront of all this because they're controlled by the left.
Absolutely. And some of the stories, and I hate to even mention this story again because I don't want to give it any more traction in the mud, but a husband and wife in Arizona, they drank some fishbowl cleaner that on the label it contained a drug similar to a drug that was mentioned on one of the White House press conferences that would be used to treat coronavirus. And not only President Trump said the name of the drug, but also some of the doctors in the background. But this couple saw this ingredient on the fishbowl cleaner. They drank it. The husband died. And the media like CNN and MSNBC came out and basically accused Donald Trump of being a murderer.
Yeah, and that's crazy. I mean, they shouldn't, it might have had that particular drug in it, but it's still not something that you should drink, because that's something that's a cleaning thing. It's got other stuff in there that's not good for you,
One thing I wanted to ask you about, I heard a comment in passing the other day, and I wanted to see if you agreed with it. But in an interview that was going on television, and I just caught the tail end of it, that the person being interviewed had great concerns about the status of our country right now and how this problem may propel the unions to more power in this country. Can you relate to that or give us any thoughts? Because I'm not sure exactly how and why this was said.
Well, the unions are still struggling to get things done and get people on their side. So, they're going to use all this. And like I say, they're the ones that are really behind the bigot, probably one of the biggest groups behind the attacks, using the media to do this stuff. And because bottom line, Zeb, is they want to get the Democrats and the White House and then the Senate and keep the House, and that way they can control America, and that's what it's all about.
I noticed, and I'm sure, Dave, as a businessman, you've noticed this, that yesterday, after that Rose Garden interview with the vice president and some of the medical powers that be, and some of the comments that were made by Donald Trump about let's get back to work as soon as we can, the stock market had its biggest and best day since 1933. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's what we just talked about a little earlier. We need to get business back going again, and that's going to just bloom the economy and get people back to work and jobs and everything. And and I think that's an indicator of it. We just need to get it done.
What has been, because you live in a sports city. A sports city, I term, is a sports city that has professional sports. You have a basketball team and a pro football team. What has it done in your city to all the people, whether they are the food servers, the cleaners, janitorial services, ticket takers, etc.? What's it done to people's unemployment back in Indianapolis?
Well, like I say, janitors and that, we're still essential business, so these people are still working, and so are food service workers to a point, because we can still do carry out here. So there's a lot of the restaurants are doing carry out, but the sad side is on that we've had a lot of restaurants have shut down, and we've had some here in the past week saying they're closing down forever. And so it's sad on that end, and that's the big problem.
When you have the Pacers not playing basketball and coming into the fall, the Colts, that's a big bust on the economy back there in your local Indianapolis area, I'm sure.
Oh, it is. Plus, we do NCAA things here.
Yep.
The NCAA headquarters are here in Indianapolis,
yep.
And a lot of things have been put off, and it's sad for the people here because they enjoy it so much, and it's good for the city. But here's the other thing: because of this, all the hotels and everything have shut down.
Oh my!
And it's so people that work in those areas, they're not considered essential anymore, and they've been shut down. And I don't know if you see that Marriott shut down all over the country, and they're going to get rid of a lot of places.
Let me ask you real quick, because you are a former great basketball player, and basketball is one of your main loves, but as far as the NCAA and the tournament and everything being stymied and stopped this year, what about these kids? What about these schools? What about the records? What about everything about NCAA basketball? I mean, man, you're going to have a great big divot in the ground and nothing to show for it.
I know, and that's sad. You've got to feel sorry for these kids and what's going on. And, I know they're trying to protect the kids. And, we clean educational facilities, too. And here's the other tough part about it is that a lot of parents, they got to find ways to stay home with their kids now. And it's just it's tough what's going on. But it's sad for these athletes, too, who, are really looking forward to a great spring and summer and fall.
Absolutely. Dave, I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation this morning. You added some insight to various problems on this coronavirus that needed to be addressed. Thank you. Dave Bego, my dear friend, back in Indianapolis, Indiana. Stay safe, my friend, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Well, you too, and I hope everything goes well for you.
Thank you, my dear friend. Dave Bego, Indianapolis, Indiana. I want to remind you, too, before we go to our next guest coming up on the program, Hanson Mortuary with our dear friend Joel Heward, his family, and his staff serving you at 710 6th Street in Rupert. A lot of us just kind of poo-poo it and don't say anything or don't act on anything, but we all, for the benefit of our family, we really should get pre-planning information on funerals to take a lot of the pressure off of our families. I urge you to call the number 436-5636. That number again, 436-5636. And if there is a passing of a loved one, don't forget Hanson Mortuary, providing the families they serve with the best possible support and comfort, always with the highest ethical standards and unquestioned integrity. Hanson Mortuary in Rupert, 436-5636. And Joel Heward also serving you and your family at Morrison Payne Funeral Home on East Main in Burley. Wow, cloudy outside. There's been some snow showers. There's been all kinds of things that we don't like to talk about going into spring going on outside. But I can tell you this is something we do want to talk about, because sooner or later we're going to start to see warmer climes. We're going to see sunshine. We're going to want to get outside. And we're going to want to head for the hills. Well, I tell you what, you better get over to Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World, because they've got all your 4 four-wheelers, I'm telling you, just go into the showroom and figure out, get a mental picture of what's all in there, and then figure out how they got it all in there. Holy smokes, let's ride. Open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, open Saturday, 9 to 4. They have decided to cancel their open house on April 3rd, and when they come up with a reevaluation on that, we'll put it on the air for you. But that means you better get in there and check out the four-wheelers today. And if you already have a four-wheeler, you better get it serviced and ready for this year. And they're offering 15% off on all the service until April 30th, I think it is. So you check it out. Let's ride 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World. This is where the fun is sold. Over in that area, I also want to highlight another business that absolutely is serving you, your family, and, of course, your business, and that's Cameron and Siemens Insurance. Todd and the whole crew, boy, you talk about dedication. They are there and very responsive to your needs. Life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits. And really, all you need to do is just dial the number and say, help, and they will. Number to call, 436-4424. That number again, 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24. In Rupert. Really good folks. When I talk about good folks, I've got to mention this man because I just enjoy having him on the program. I learn from him every single time he's on the program because he is so easy to understand when it comes to talking billions, trillions, and whatever. And that's what we're going to do this morning. We're going to have our public policy analyst, economics expert, and professor of finance at Stockton University in New Jersey, Dr. Michael Busler. Sir, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Zeb. Thanks for having me. It's always my pleasure to be here, and thank you for those kind words.
Well, they're not just kind words, they're a fact. I mean, I've said it many times on the show that if I'd have had you for an economics teacher in high school, I wouldn't have been such a dolt. I mean, you really are good.
Thank you.
That being said, I know that you have a lot of thoughts on where we are economically in this country. In the last 3 weeks, things have just gone into a tailspin. And I also want to dovetail that into the possible $2 trillion stimulus bill. So where do we start? I mean, what are your thoughts about basically America's first shutdown like we've never seen before?
Okay, so let's start with the big picture. Prior to this coronavirus hitting, the economy was poised, I think, for its best year in decades. Everything was looking very good. Wages are up, incomes are up, inflation is down, unemployment is down, regulations have been reduced. They repealed part of the Dodd-Frank bill that was holding things up, so everything looked good. Then the coronavirus hit. And we end up with this shutdown. We're not quite sure, one, how long it will last, although the president seems somewhat optimistic. Within a couple of weeks, we can at least start to bring some of the country back. So we don't know. The second quarter is going to be a disaster, a large negative number for GDP growth, all kinds of estimates. There really is not enough data to really forecast what that'll be, but it will be a negative number. Now, there's a lot of scenarios as to what's going to happen with the virus and when things can occur. One scenario, perhaps a little bit more to the optimistic side, is that the number of cases ends up peaking in about mid-April, about 2 or 3 weeks, and then things start to return to normal. If that's the case, I think you'll see starting in either May or June, the economy really starting to pick up significantly, bounce back from this, and I think we're going to have a fairly rapid recovery from this downturn, and things should look good for the rest of the year. Now, why do I say that? Well, there are two things primarily that I think will lead to that. One, monetary policy. The Federal Reserve is injecting trillions into the money supply. That will stimulate growth. They dropped interest rates back to the near zero range. that'll stimulate growth too, especially in industries like the housing market. We're already starting to see 30-year mortgages down close to 3%, 3.2%, 15-year mortgages even at lower rates. So once everybody comes out again, that should mean a good housing market. Because of geopolitical forces, the price of gasoline, price of oil has dropped. The price of gas is going to be under $2 a gallon. That means people will be spending less money on gas, more money to spend on other things. That would tend to stimulate the economy. And the last thing you mentioned is it looks like the federal government will pass a $2 trillion stimulus package, which is both very good and very bad. Now, why do I say that? On the good side, it's going to help so many people that are unemployed. They've extended unemployment benefits. There's money in there to help businesses get through this. Industries like the airlines, which have seen their revenue drop almost to zero, they'll be getting some money to get through this. And I think the pain from this coronavirus will be relatively mild as a result of this stimulus package. There's money in there for every American. I think if you make under $75,000 as an individual or under $150,000 as a couple, each adult will get $1,200, and if you have children, I think $500 payment for that. So for a family of four, that's over $3,000, which that'll help people that have been hurt to pay the bills, and people that haven't been hurt quite that much, it'll give them a little more money to spend. That'll help stimulate the economy. And with the monetary policy, the low gasoline prices, and the fiscal policy, the stimulus, I think the second half of this year is going to be very, very strong.
Oh.
Now, I said it's both good and bad. Why is it bad? We already have a $1 trillion deficit this year. You're spending $2 trillion more. We're going to end up with a deficit for the year of $3 trillion. We can't keep doing this. We've had very large deficits really since 2009 when the Obama administration passed their stimulus package, and the deficit ballooned from about $450 billion the prior year, tripled up to $1.4 trillion in 2009, and we've been struggling to try to get that number down. So we're going to have to eventually confront the deficit problem. Probably after the election, we'll be able to do that. But this stimulus package, which I agree was needed to prevent any disaster from hitting the economy, we will have to deal with it later because of the large deficit.
Okay, now, Dr. Bussler, bear with me on these questions I'm going to ask. Some of them may be very naive, so I'm going to kind of shotgun some questions in the time remaining and give me some relatively short answers. Number one, on the stimulus package money, where did it come from? Where did they borrow it from?
They're going to borrow it by selling Treasury bonds, just like they do with all the deficits and the total deficits. The public debt is financed all through selling bonds. So we'll have to go into the bond market to get this. They're not going to raise taxes to cover any of this. That would be counterproductive. So they're going to go straight to the bond market and borrow all that money.
Okay, but now, going to the bond market and the selling of those bonds, is there not an opportunity, and again, this is a naive question off the top of my head, is there not an opportunity at that juncture for China and other of our enemies to basically have those bonds and have control of that money that eventually will have to pay interest to our enemies?
Yes. Those foreign entities are permitted to buy those bonds. I don't think China will be buying much. Their economy is in very bad shape now, and they're going to have to spend whatever they have on that. But you do bring up a good point. China owns about $1 trillion of our debt. The public debt is now approaching $23 trillion. Now, we just added $2 more trillion to it, so it'll be even higher. China has a little over $1 trillion of that debt, and yes, we are paying interest to the Chinese government on that. Japan has a lot of our debt also. I believe about 2/3 of it, though, is held by Americans. So we do control our debt, but you're right, we're going to be paying interest possibly to foreign government.
Okay, the other thing I wanted to ask about is a lot of people, I think, overlook the value of food in this country and where it can be purchased. And with the declination of restaurants that are going out of business every single day, people don't realize the domino effect that goes all the way back to the farm and farm produce and ranchers with beef. I mean, this thing could last and hurt people for years to come and put a lot of people out of business.
Well, it certainly could. We're hoping that doesn't happen. The stimulus package did include some low-interest loans and some grants for small businesses. Many will be in the food industry, enough to keep them afloat during these tough times. The hope is that as long as we keep them afloat for 2, 3, 4 months until the economy can at least begin to return to normal, that their business should pick up significantly. Look, Americans like to go out and eat. So many of Americans, about a third of the country, and I'm one of them, are quarantined in our homes, and we're having to do what we do and make our own food, which we can do. But we like to go out and eat. So I think once this thing gets over with and things start to return to normal, I'm hopeful that the restaurant business and the whole hospitality industry will see a big rebound, enough to keep everybody, or at least most everybody, in business. One last note, I live in Atlantic City. I live down beach from Atlantic City in a New Jersey resort town. The casino industry, the casinos have all been shut down as a result of that, which is really clobbering this industry and the whole area. But again, I'm hopeful once this virus gets over and things return to normal, I'm hoping everybody can make it through this.
Okay, now I'm going to sound like a naysayer again, but I want you to clarify for me. It's great, and I'm one of the guys that travels more than most people, but it's great to look at the gas pumps, the diesel pumps, and see much, much lower prices. But there is also a danger there that now that we're energy self-sufficient in this great United States of America, the lower the prices go, the more it might hurt the industry and reduce production. Those low prices could be a negative instead of a positive. Am I wrong?
You're absolutely right. At the price of oil being below $30 a gallon, many of the producers will have to shut down because it simply costs more than that to bring the oil out of the ground, and that's a negative. But again, once the economy returns to normal, oil prices should rebound, and they should be able to come back in business. Now, having said that, there are some geopolitical forces, what's happening in Saudi Arabia and Russia and their relationship with each other. Some of those forces are acting to keep the price of oil down also. And while it is a positive for us at the gas pump, you're absolutely right, it is a negative for our oil producers. We need to get the price of oil probably back up to the $50 a barrel range, gasoline roughly in the $2.50 per gallon range. That seems to be a number that the oil industry can continue to produce, and it provides low-cost gasoline for consumers.
I don't want to minimize, like I said to my guest a half hour preceding you, about what's going on with the dangers of the coronavirus versus the flu. But you and I have talked about this about 3-4 weeks ago. The coronavirus, I know it's extremely dangerous. I know that it's now taking the name of a pandemic. But Dr. Busler, as you're well aware, and we've talked about, the flu virus claims literally 40, 50, 60,000 lives every flu season, and there is not the burning the hair and running in circles attitude that we have today versus this pandemic. Don't you feel to some extent that it's been a lot to do over maybe not as big a problem as they say?
There has been an overreaction, and you're absolutely right. There were roughly 34 million people in the U.S. that got the flu this year. so far, I think the number of deaths is only in the 20,000 or so range. So the average for the last 10 years has been 36,000 deaths and per year, and some years as high as 50, 60, or 70,000. So far with this virus, there's only about 50,000 people infected and about 700 or 800 people that have died. I certainly don't want to make light of that, but that's only a fraction of what we see from the flu in just an average season. So did we overreact? Probably, but most people will say, look, we didn't know how bad this could have gotten, and because it could have led to something very serious, you probably want to overreact rather than underreact. I'm
Absolutely.
not sure that's the right position, because as the president has pointed out, the cure for the disease seems to be much worse than the actual disease itself.
Absolutely.
So certainly we're going to look back at this once everything is settled and say, boy, we really did overreact to this. I don't know if that was the right or wrong thing to do, but we did react to it, and it caused a lot of harm in the economy, both in the short term, and because we're going to deal with this deficit problem in the longer term, cause some issues also.
Let me ask you, and I hate to use these words on my program, I don't want to promote any negativity whatsoever, but are you concerned about these two words that send a chill up everybody's backbone, recession and or depression?
No, I'm not concerned at all. What we're going to see, recession technically, and they modified the definition, but technically it's 2 successive quarters of the year with negative GDP. Now, the first quarter of this year, January and February are very, very good months. March started out okay, and then the virus hit. So we probably would have had a 2.5% to 3% growth in the first quarter without the virus. With the virus, I think we're looking at probably a 0 to 0.5%, I think slightly positive. The second quarter will be largely negative and perhaps a very big number negative. But then in the third quarter, July, August, September, I think you'll see things start to rebound, and the third quarter will have very high positive growth, as will the fourth quarter. So although the downturn will be relatively steep, it will be short-lived and not long enough to technically call it a recession. Now, the government may end up calling it a recession by different definition, but I think we're going to recover from this very quickly. I think, as I said, the second quarter will be negative. We're all going to be hurting a little bit. But come this summertime, things are going to return to normal, I believe, and activity will pick up significantly. And I think partially because of this large stimulus package that was passed and Federal Reserve policy also, I think we'll avoid a technical recession.
Dr. Bustle, let me ask you one more question before we run out of time. I apologize for the feedback there for a moment. The stock market, the volatility of the stock market right now. Yesterday, it soared to highs that it hasn't seen since 1933. Are you concerned about the peaks and valleys of the volatility of the stock market, and what kind of effect is that going to have?
I'm not really concerned. There's no fundamental reason for the stock market to have dropped as much as it did. It did so only because of fear and investors feeling so much uncertainty that they got so nervous. People are saying, look, we're heading for a severe recession, maybe even a depression. So all the investors started saying, boy, I better sell my stock now before it's worthless in the future. Everybody started dumping stocks, and that's why prices went down. But as soon as they can be reassured that the sky is not falling, the stock market's going to recover very rapidly. I tell people, and I'm doing the same thing, I don't look at my 401k. I'm just not going to look at it. I'm going to come back on June 1st and take a look at it then. It'll probably be fairly close to where it was, and if not, it'll take a couple of more months. Let me just say one thing about that. When the stock market goes down, and as it has in the past, it usually only takes about 3 to 6 months to recover. Now, in 2008, we had a 50% drop in the stock market. It took 18 months to recover. This time, we had about a 35% drop in the stock market, but it's already starting to recover because basically there's no fundamental reason why it should have dropped that much. So I think in 3 to 6 months we'll be back up to that 29,000 Dow, back up to where we were. So I tell people before you get too nervous and start pulling your hair out, don't look at the stock market. Come back in the summertime and look at it then, and you probably won't be much below where you were at the high.
One final thought, Dr. Bustler, and I think a lot of people would like to hear your comment on this. You, being a professor and an analyst of economics, you've seen other administrations in the way they handle perhaps economic problems. Give us your thoughts about the way the Trump administration put together a team to address the coronavirus and what its effects would be on the economy. Are you positive about what they did or negative about what they're doing?
I'm extremely positive. President Trump reacted very quickly. The first corona case was reported in the U.S. on January 21st. 10 days later, he imposed a travel ban from China, took a lot of heat from that, but it ended up slowing the growth. Since that time, I think he has put together an excellent team. We realized that we had some issues with the way the FDA controls some things, which made getting the testing kits out a little bit slower and getting some of these ventilators and respirators and those kind of things out a little bit slower. But President Trump fixed that. So we're starting to respond to that. And if something like this happens again, and it likely will sometime in the future, if it happens again, the system will be better able to handle it by minimizing some of the negative impacts. You know, you go back to 2009 when we had that swine flu. It took 6 months for the administration to really react to it. And when they reacted to it, we already had over 20,000 cases and more than 1,000 people died before they even started to do anything. So I think the president has reacted very quickly. He took drastic action by essentially shutting down much of the country. He's very anxious to get the economy started again. His Easter date may be a little bit optimistic, but there are parts of the country that are not feeling much of this. I mean, you take most of the cases, or over half the cases we have so far are in New York State, and most of those are in New York City. So New York, California, probably Washington State has most of the cases. The rest of the country feels it, but it's not really as much, and maybe by Easter, much of that, those parts of the country will be able to return to normal.
This man is the best. I think his students should realize they've got the best man for the job right up at the head of the classroom, Dr. Michael Bustler. God bless you, man, for coming on the program, and please know I'm going to be calling in the next couple of weeks to have you back. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I always appreciate your kind words, and I look forward to doing this again.
All right, sir. Thank you. Dr. Michael Bustler, public policy analyst, economics expert, and, as I said, a professor of economics and finance at Stockton University in New Jersey, and so easy to understand and comprehend about what's going on. I know somebody else that's easy to comprehend, and that's Gina with the weather, and we're going to have our weather forecast coming on right now, brought to you by Phillips Oakes, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. They are the professionals in accounting services to the Mini-Cassia area and have been for over 50 years. The very best of tax return preparation, tax planning, bookkeeping services, retirement planning, all of this and so much more. Be sure and get a hold of them today. Offices in Burley and Rupert, and I'm talking about Phillips Oakes, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Typical spring day for this midweek. Here's a look at what we can expect. Slight chance of rain and or snow showers by the afternoon. Partly sunny skies. A little bit of a breeze. Expecting a high of 46 tonight. Clouds could be rolling in. We are looking at a low of 27. Wind gusts as high as 22 miles an hour. Then for tomorrow, partly sunny skies. Expecting a high of 45. By Friday, mostly sunny and 47. That's a look at your weather forecast for Zeb at the Ranch.
I appreciate you, Gina. Thank you very much. And brought to everybody by our friends that really can help you, your business, your family, with your tax return preparations. They're busy right now. Tax planning, all of this and more. Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company, with offices in Burley and Rupert. Wheels, old buddy, old pal, if you could turn the feed line up just a little bit to me. It went down just a little bit during our conversation with Dr. Bustler. If you could, I'd sure appreciate that. Here's what's going on next hour. We had a change, and I do not like changes that occur less than an hour before the person's going to go on the air. We had a gentleman scheduled for 10:06 this morning that is nationwide known, and we were going to talk to him about what he's doing with the coronavirus and how he's helping to cope with all the problems. All set up, and then all of a sudden we get a note saying, oh, well, he can't come on this morning. So what happened was I said, what am I going to do? I've got a full half hour. My dear friend and your friend, Senator Kelly Anthon, is going to come on the phone, and we're going to talk about not only the legislative session, but also the coronavirus and other things. That's going to be at 10:06. Then at 10:30 this morning, we're going to have one of my favorite political and policy analysts come on the air, and that's Dan Perkins from down in the state of Florida. All of that coming up in the next hour, unless Deanne gets some other changes, which I hope she doesn't. Once again, support all of your merchants, support all of your businesses. They are working hard and always have worked hard to serve you. Now it's our time to show our appreciation to them. And a lot of these businesses Deanne's calling and talking to, and we're finding out how they're transitioning some of their business to better serve you at this time, and we'll relate that to you during the time I give your ads, okay? Right now, we're going to send it over to Wheels for about the next 3-4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever. We'll be back. Zeb at the Ranch, don't go away. Good morning. Here we go. Hour number 3. Zeb at the Ranch. I'm Zeb Bell in the Ranch studio. Wheels over at the main studio. And, of course, we're brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you with a great big spring tire sale going on right now. You better get in there today. And, of course, our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. And our friends at Greystone Crossing Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Hayburn. Oh, my goodness, a beautiful 12-bedroom home, and they furnish 3 meals a day, snacks, housekeeping, everything. I'm telling you, this is a beautiful place, and I want you to call them. I want you to talk to them. And when I say them, it's Matt and Kelly Wiggins at 650-4979. And they will arrange for you to see the beautiful surroundings of Greystone Crossing. Absolutely. They're all prepared and stocked up with food and supplies to keep everyone well fed and happy over at Greystone Crossing at 1221 21st Street in Hayburn. Seniors living the good life with friends. And real quick, I also want to acknowledge some other friends of mine, and that's Lon Hardy and Sharon Wilmot with 7K Metals. What is 7K Metals? Well, I'll tell you what. They introduced me to these programs of buying silver purchases that can be sent right to your home, that you can basically help yourself build your financial security and future, and it's a valued treasure for your loved ones in the future. You better check it out today. All you have to do is call Lon Hardy at 312-8699 or Sharon Wilmot at 430-3259 and ask them questions about 7K Metals. Tell them I told you to call 7K Metals and silver purchases and help your financial security and future. I want to thank this man from the bottom of my heart for being so amenable to coming on and helping me with what turned out to be a vacant half hour thanks to a guest that canceled at the last minute. And it's kind of a blessing because I wanted to ask him about the legislative session as far as what went on in the Senate up in Boise this year. Good morning to a dear friend, Senator Kelly Anthon. How are you?
Well, good, Deb, and good morning to you. And I want to thank you. I mean, God, it's an opportunity for me. So thanks for letting me come on today.
What would you, as a senator, and I know you're deluged every day with calls and emails and everything about what to do, what not to do, how the state should go, etc. What are some of the hot topics that you thought were addressed and taken care of in the legislative session that went through the Senate? And what are some of the loose ends that you want to talk about this morning?
Well, sure. Boy, there are a lot of bills and topics that fit under those categories, so I'll just touch on some that just come to mind. But, let me start with the ones that I think there's still some loose ends hanging out there. First of all, taxes. Property taxes in particular are a big issue. We're pretty blessed in the Mini-Cassia area and maybe the entire Magic Valley that we haven't dealt with some of the property tax issues that they're seeing in the urban areas. I mean, you have folks in Ada County who, for a variety of reasons, have seen their home taxes on their home go up about 50% in 1 year. And we can talk about why that is, but at the end of the day, I was very hopeful I could push through some legislation this year that would have at least started to deal with the property tax issue for the most vulnerable Idahoans, and that is what they call the circuit breaker program. So these are folks that are low income, they're over 65, they can be blind, they're disabled veterans, they're widows, widowers, and there's a series of these categories. And my concern has always been that we tax people out of their home. And so I think we've got some work still to do there. I would anticipate over the summer you'll see an interim committee of the joint legislative bodies studying property taxes. And I don't feel like we made very much progress there, to be honest with you, Deb. But I am hopeful. I think that the general consensus of the legislature on both sides of the aisle is that in Idaho we need to be paying attention that we don't let our taxes get out of control. One of the other things that I'm never quite satisfied when I leave Boise when we deal with it is transportation issues. And you and I, Deb, have talked about this over the years, but I just really think that we have a deficiency in Idaho in the maintenance of a lot of our roadways. I think we have bridge needs that are going unmet. And so, it's going to take some work to shift minds to think about how we spend money, how we raise money for those projects. And in light of the kind of economic struggles we're having now that this coronavirus has caused economic damage, I think we're in for a long haul on really working on some of those transportation issues.
Let me interject something right there, Kelly, if I could. When everybody, every year on this program, and you've been on the program in the past, we've talked about the same subject, transportation issues, funding, where's the money going to come from? And quite frankly, and tell me how wrong I am in my thinking, the more that this country pushes for green energy, the more lack of funding you're going to have for transportation issues. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. As a matter of fact, this is why I say that we've got to start doing some thinking about how we raise money for these things. If you rely solely on a gas tax for how you're going to fund road revenues, roads, and road maintenance and road construction, in a state like ours, that's a real challenge. It starts out with a challenge because, number one, we don't like high taxes. I don't know if anybody does, but some areas of the state seem to. But not only that, you're dealing with a smaller population in a large geographic area. And so for Idaho, that is a real challenge. But on top of that, to your point, as we shift to electric cars, hybrid cars, and some of those things, as those things have happened, we are going to see a continuing challenge to meet the road fund needs. You won't be able to raise the money off just the gas tax. So the real debate is, how do you do that? And many people feel strongly you shouldn't use other taxes to pay for these projects. I'm not necessarily one of them. I get the idea behind it, but at the end of the day, our farmers, our businesses need to be able to get down the road. Mm-hmm. And we're not meeting some of those needs. And so I'm an open mind. And I'll tell you the other thing that happens, Deb, unfortunately, because if the state doesn't fund road maintenance correctly, it falls on local government. And unfortunately, you'll see this in my district, in Burley and Rupert. A our voters have had to approve additional property taxes just to keep up the roads. And I understand why they've done it, and I've supported it. But that's not how this should work. We shouldn't be shifting road maintenance onto property taxes, and that's what's happened in my district. And I think we're going to continue to see that kind of problem until we get a little more serious on the state level about how we're going to fund transportation.
Yeah, and just from a very layman's personality and viewpoint, the shifting over to property taxes, that's an unfair and unjust tax to a certain segment, and the other ones get off scot-free.
Well, that's right. I mean, if we really do so in Idaho that it should be user-based, so those who use the road should pay for them, we shouldn't be shifting that off onto homeowners.
That's right.
And that's happened. And it will continue to happen, I think, until we can get more serious on the state side.
What other issues, I'm kind of shotgunning here this morning, but what other issues are still the loose ends?
Well, let's see. I think, we're always going to have to be dealing with education issues. I think your listeners may or may not be happy to know that Idaho's legislature this year took a very strong position to end Common Core in the state of Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
You will see in the next year or two a complete retooling of Idaho's standards so that we can get something that I think people can get behind.
Yes.
And when I was in Boise, and I would say this to your listeners, even if you feel strongly that Common Core is a good thing, which I don't hear a lot of, to be honest with you, but you have to admit that what we have in Idaho is a failed system where your parents and many of your school teachers can't get behind the core standards. And so I've been arguing in Boise for a couple of years, it's time for a change, if for no other reason than that. But I will also tell you, Zeb, I'm a parent to the kids who go to these local schools, and many of your listeners may think I'm a complete dummy, and so they'll understand this. But I'll sit down to that homework with my kids, and you just scratch your head and say, what the heck is this?
Yep.
And I know many of your listeners have had this experience. And so it is time. It's time. We have had the Common Core standards in place for many years. They have not provided the improvement that they were supposed to have made. And I understand that many people who may be listening support them, but I think it's time for change, and we took a step in the right direction there.
Absolutely.
So I think we're going to see a retooling. It's going to take a couple of years to really get it right. But we're going to follow states like Florida who have said the Common Core standards are not good for us. We're going to try something better.
No, I couldn't agree more, and I was ecstatic to hear and see that Common Core is going to go by the wayside. Now, let's talk a little bit about that budget for education in the state of Idaho. I believe, correct me please, Kelly, if I'm wrong, I believe the allocation and increase to the budget of $1.8 million that's going to hopefully enhance more teachers to come to the state. Explain that a little bit.
Well, so we've been following now, I believe this is the 5th year of a funding recommendation from actually Governor Otter's education study group. And so we have been increasing teacher pay steadily over the last several years. There are a lot of, to me, there are some real highlights in that have earned my support, and one of them was this year. It's actually Senate Bill 1329, if somebody's interested, that it is focusing more money on career technical education. And what happened when they first kicked off that career ladder in the state of Idaho was they did not carve out the appropriate kind of pay for career technical education. So my first year in the legislature, you saw 14 high schools in Idaho just completely drop some of their career technical education programs because the state's formula didn't pay teachers enough for them to show up. I mean, if you think about a diesel mechanic, if you want a diesel mechanic to come into the school and teach kids that practical skill set and that profession, you're going to have to pay them because we know that a diesel mechanic can make some good money. And the formula was not accounting for that. So I'm really encouraged to see the state take a turn towards career technical education, getting kids actual good skills, understanding that not every single student's going to go get a PhD and that kind of thing. The truth of the matter is that plumbers and electricians and electric linemen and some of these other professions that we have are very much needed, and they provide a very, very good living. In fact, many more times than the living you can get sometimes with a bachelor's degree. So we just need to be honest about that, and I'm glad to see the state taking a turn on education.
Absolutely. There was two bills that went through the House that I was very attentive to, and that was House Bill 500, which bans transgender people from changing the sex listed on their birth certificates. 509 that was, and then also Bill 500 that banned transgender women from competing in women's sports here in the state of Idaho. You and I talked about this many, many times, and I looked at it as a badge of honor to our legislators that supported protecting girls' sports, and also on the other bill, the common sense of you are what you are. If you're a male or a female, it should be on your license and not be changed.
Well, that's right, Zeb. And so, you know, I supported both those bills. Both of those bills came through in a committee where I serve, and that's the Senate State Affairs Committee. And also, to your point, you know, in the Senate, those were widely supported bills. Let's talk first real quick about the Women's in Sports bill. You know, it wasn't that long ago, a generation ago, that women were not even given hardly any opportunities in some high schools to play sports or participate in those things. And so it was Congress who took the step forward to say we need to change that. And Title IX of the code there is meant to ensure that women don't have to compete in the way that is being sought after now. So the idea was that girls should have an opportunity to play sports and compete for scholarships in a way that is fair. And unfortunately, I think that some of the socio-cultural changes that we're seeing, if we're not careful, will undermine some of the fairness that we've been protecting now for a couple decades. You know, the advocates for that bill were compelling. And if you haven't visited with them, Zeb, I ought to introduce you. But, you know, Barbara Ehart, a Republican from the Idaho Falls area, brought that bill. Mm-hmm. She is a very distinguished sports coach. Mm-hmm. And she made a compelling case on a lot of different levels. But one of the things that was also very fascinating to me about House Bill 500 was it was not a clear-cut and dry kind of a thing where transgender people hated it and those who weren't supported it. As a matter of fact, many of the advocates for that bill were people in the transgender community who said it's not right that we're messing this up.
We have a caller with a question and a comment, Kelly. Let's inject that right now. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Quickly, please.
Just a quick comment. I just got done calling the governor's office and told him he better sign those bills into law. And I asked him how the calls have been coming in, and he says they've been getting a lot of calls for them to veto it, coming from the Coeur d'Alene area and the Boise area. Just food for thought.
Appreciate that, Doug. Thank you. Kelly, respond to that, because I, too, have urged my audience to call Governor Little and vote for both bills, 500 and 509. But I'm going to be blunt. I am on this air. I see the problems with big money, Chobani. I see the problems with big money, Cliff Bar, Micron, and others that are doing arm twisting. Why, I don't know, for a very small percentage of our population that would hurt the larger population of all girls sports. Why is there any thought at all? Why would there be any concern that Governor Little wouldn't sign those bills?
So, Zeb, I'm so sorry I didn't hear the caller, but let me respond to you, and maybe I can answer that. You know, first of all, those who know me and know my career know that I am absolutely pro-business. I support the economic development of this community in such a way that my kids will be able to stay here and have a family of their own, have a good job. But the leadership that we need in this state is not just growth of business for business sake. You know, we have to have people who are principled, who understand our local communities, who stand up for our traditional values. And that doesn't mean that we're unfair to anybody. That's the thing of it, is I know Zeb Bell and I know my own values, and none of my values mean that we're unfair to anybody.
That's right.
And unfortunately, that's how it's painted sometimes. If we stand up for what we think is the right thing for our community, we're labeled in that way. But I would tell you that, you know what, we're not just here to serve business. We're here to serve families, and this is what I've always said about my service in the legislature.
Absolutely.
I always ask the question on any piece of legislation, but particularly these major ones, what's the right thing to do for our families at home?
Absolutely.
And if I'm voting against that measure, and you need to vote me out of office.
Absolutely.
I need to be in the Senate.
Kelly, let me say, the caller that called in said that the governor mentioned to him that he is getting a lot of calls from northern Idaho and the Boise Valley to support the veto of those bills. So I think it behooves me to say once again, everyone within the sound of my voice should be calling Governor Little right now at 208-334-2100 and demand that he sign those bills. Quickly give me a response. We've got another caller.
This is the correct thing to do, and I would say it to you just the way you said it, that this is the time where you stand up for what you believe in, and it's always the right time to do that, obviously. But this is a time where the governor needs to hear from you.
Absolutely, caller. Real quick, I've only got 3 minutes left. Go fast. You're on the air.
It will be quick. Mr. Anton, can you tell me what the state does, what the rules are when a hermaphrodite is born? What sex do they register on the birth certificate then? Thank you.
Thank you for your call. Kelly, you're the one answering the call.
Sure, and I can answer you the best I can. I have met with the Attorney General's office and other representatives of the Department of Health and Welfare. There is a very small scenario. Statistically, it's less than 1%, where sometimes the sex, as opposed to gender, these are two different things, that the biological sex is indeterminate. And in those very limited cases, as I understand, there is the option in the birth for that not to be listed on the birth certificate as either male or female. And so there are some very rare instances, but again, the biological sex that belongs on a birth certificate is different than a gender identity. And what we know is that in terms of gender identity, there are many more gender identities that are promulgated than there are male and female. And so these are very complicated matters on the one hand, but on the other, they're very simple, which is 99.9 some odd % of people are born either male or female.
Absolutely. 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 You know, there's such a funny oxymoron here that certain people will say that we've got to stay with certain facets of our education and get more into science, but then on the other hand, they disavow and don't acknowledge that there are only two genders, male and female.
Well, and this really presents the question that I was faced with the bill 509, and it's whether or not the state has a compelling interest to track the sex of people as they're born, and the implications of that in terms of the government operating for the people. So, is there any benefit for us to keeping track of who's male and female? How does that play into criminal investigations? How does that play into education, like we've talked about?
Yes.
So, if there is a compelling interest for us to keep track of the sex of people, not the gender, which is a little different. I know it's nuanced, but if there is a compelling interest, then we need to have some common sense about how we keep track of that information.
Absolutely.
And to allow someone to walk into the Department of Health and Welfare and just change that information at their own request without any factual basis to it, in my opinion, undermines the compelling interest of the state.
You are excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, we all should be very, very proud of this man representing us as a senator in the state of Idaho. And, of course, I'm talking about Senator Kelly Anthon over in Rupert. Thank you so much, Kelly. God bless you. Please come back on the air as soon as you can. I would really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, and God bless you, and I'm honored to serve, and I'm proud to have you as a friend. Thank you very much.
Kelly Anthon, and every single time that I've asked him to come on the program, he's dropped everything and been here to give us his thoughts and opinions, and I really appreciate it. That just it proves that we have some excellent legislators here in the state of Idaho. Want to remind you, too, about our friends over at Patterson's Electronics. We're going to get a chance to visit with Curtis tomorrow. tomorrow on our Business Salute, and he's going to tell me all about power cords and monster cables and everything else. I'll tell you what, electronics. They've got it all over at Patterson's Electronics, 421 East Main in Burley, along with the home theater systems, video surveillance cameras, car stereo speakers, complete sound systems, all your TVs. My goodness, they're open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6, and they are waiting to serve you. These are nice people. Stop in and see them today. Telephone number to call in case you want to call first and ask if they've got a certain product, 678-6997. Patterson's Electronics, 421 East Main in Burley. And real quick, too, I want to remind you about what's cooking over at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Oh, boy, they've continued that great big anniversary sale. Up to 4 years, interest-free on approved credit. Listen to this. Furniture and mattresses, 40 to 50% off. I kid you not. You better get in and check it out today. All the great mattresses for you to get a good night's sleep. Great furniture buys like sectionals starting at just $6.99, love seats starting at just $2.99. What are you waiting for? Warm up the car. Hurry in to 459 Oberlin in Burley. Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Right now, we're going to send it over to old Buddy Wheels, and we'll be back in about 3 minutes.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Oh, thank you very much. As I've said many times on this program, I develop kind of a stable of guests, if you will, that when I want to reach in and grab a name, I've got some of the best people that are highly qualified to come on and talk about certain issues and problems around the world. Well, this next man is a great author, a retired veteran, and nationally recognized expert on foreign policy. And I've reached into the bin and pulled his name out many times. Good morning, Dan Perkins. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And yourself?
Doing well, thank you. I hope all is good in your area and there's not as much fear of the coronavirus as there are in other areas.
Well, I live, as you know, I live in Southwest Florida, out in the Gulf of Mexico, and excuse me, we have not had any cases at all. So we're fortunate that we're okay at the moment, and I'm ready to answer any question you want to throw at me.
I think what I'll do, Dan, is start this way this morning. There's so much turmoil, and it's such a tumultuous situation right now with the coronavirus and the left turning and burning their hair on fire, running in circles. The sky is falling. But then on the other hand, medical doctors of the highest regard in the Trump administration are saying, wait a minute, we're looking at maybe in the next couple of weeks this thing's going to peak out and we can get back to being productive again. Where do you come in on all these different takes?
For some reason, he just got disconnected.
Well, call him again. Don't worry about telling me. Just go ahead and get him on the air, please. Dan Perkins cut off for some reason. We had a little trouble with the phone line, and we'll reestablish that as quickly as possible. While we're waiting, yes, go ahead.
I was going to say, he's back on.
Oh, well, good job. That was the quickest dialing I've ever heard in my life. Thank you. Dan, I don't know if you heard all of my question, but where do you stand on what's going on the last couple of days with the left and the running around trying to set their hair on fire, the sky is falling, versus what the Trump administration is saying? Where do you fall in?
I have spent close to 50 years of my life managing money for myself and for clients. So if you're going to be in the business that long, Zeb, you have to understand and how to analyze numbers. Because if you can't figure out how a company makes money, you shouldn't be able to figure out why you should buy it. So let me give you just some Wall Street analysis of what's going on. The most recent numbers reported by the Johns Hopkins constantly updated map, is about 55,000 people have been diagnosed of having the virus in the United States. I'm going to cough. Excuse me. One of the challenges, because there is a flu season too. So 55,000 people have been indicated to have the coronavirus. We've had about 800 people that have died. We have done, the most recent number that I have is several days old, but about 400,000 tests have been taken. Now, from October 1st to December 31st, which is the first half of the flu season in the United States, we had 8,300 people die. We had approximately 29 million people with the virus and 385,000 people in hospital stays. Now you take those numbers and you compare it to 55,000 people infected by tests and 800 people that have died. If you look at that, you have to say, in a logical standpoint, what an amazing overkill. We now know, based on the current data, again from the Johns Hopkins website, that the mortality rate is approaching 1%, about the same mortality rate of a typical influenza flu season. As we continue to test and increase the number of people that are supposedly diagnosed with having the virus, and the death rate is not moving, then the ultimate mortality rate is going to go below 1. We have a situation where I wrote a commentary yesterday that talks about, isn't it time to put Americans back to work? Now, understand that New York, California, and Washington, there are 6 counties in the United States that account for over 50% of the total virus contamination. There are 37 states that had less than 5 deaths. There are 12 states that had no deaths from this virus.
Mm-hmm.
So I say, I agree with Donald Trump. It's time to put people back to work. I was speaking to my wife last night. We were told over the weekend by the good intentions of the I can't think of what his title is. The guy's in charge of healthcare. Anyway, whatever his name was, the admiral, that this was going to be a very, very disastrous week. Well, it hasn't been so far. We're in day 3 of this week, and we've seen about a 200 move up in the death rate and a substantial increase in the number of people who are been tested as having the disease, but not horrific. The forecasters are saying that the flu season, which will end approximately April 1st in the United States, will probably come out something like this: 29 to 41 million. Let me say that again, Jeb. 29 to 41 million Americans will be infected with the flu. 500,000 Americans will be going to the hospital, and we'll have about 41,000 people who will die from the flu virus this season. Now, compare that to the numbers that we have on the current virus. It's not even close. And even if it got up to the numbers that we have for flu, I mean, I don't see how we get there. Now, so I'm with the president. I think we need to restart the economy. But in my commentary, I said, first of all, we have to be able to make sure that we take care of the older persons like myself. It's almost 75. who have special conditions. We know from the AARP that roughly 80% of Americans over age 65 are not regularly employed. 80%.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to me that what we need to do is, if we're going to open up the economy, we have to continue to protect our heritage, our history, our past, the senior citizens, by keeping them isolated away from the general public until this virus starts to abate. But we can take the other 95% of the country and put them back to work.
Yes.
Clearly, we have to do something about New York, and that has to be still continue to be isolated. But we have, and we want to look at California. Washington State is becoming more under control. So we have 2 pockets, and by the way, Zeb, 6 counties in the United States accounted for over 60% of the contamination.
Right.
Out of 3,400 counties in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine there are 12 states that have had no deaths from this virus. So I think I know that's a lot of numbers, and it's hard to follow all those numbers on radio. But what I'm trying to say to your audience is, let's be reasonable, let's be prudent, but let's get the economy going. Let's put people back to work. Let people deal with this virus, protect the people that are most vulnerable, let the development of the virals and the vaccines continue, and do the self-distancing and other prudent things, but let's allow the economy to begin to start the engine of growth.
Let me say this, and again, feel free to criticize me or change the verbiage and correct me. But that sounds good to me, and I adhere and I believe in everything you said. But we have in this country another obstacle in the middle of the road, and that is a very left-wing media, very left-wing, that I feel is using the coronavirus issue for total negative politics against this administration. Do you agree with me or not?
Absolutely, but this is what I'm about to say is very important. You and I have been around the dance at the barn for a long time, and we saw what happens. And I'm going back to something that we've talked about several times on this show, called the Democratic Playbook. The Democratic Playbook says, whether they're in absolute power or not, this is how Republicans are supposed to act when Democrats start to attack them. They're supposed to agree. They're supposed to go to the nearest corner, sit down, and shut up. And both the Bushes did that. They capitulated decisions because they were blackmailed by the Democratic Party. When I saw 2 days ago that Donald Trump said he was not going to sign a bill with all the crap that was in it from the Democrats, I said, we got a president that's going to stand up, and he's not going to be bullied. And what happened today? The Democrats caved. And all the stupid stuff that they had in their bill is now all gone.
Mm-hmm.
So Donald Trump is the first Republican president that took on the leadership of the Democratic Party, stared them down, and they capitulated. I think that's incredibly important. Doesn't mean that the news media is necessarily going to change its tune, except if the Democratic Party becomes more cooperative with the administration and understands their role. There could be some in the media who will begin to report honestly. The other thing that I wrote about is, before all this stimulus was coming out, and even before the virus, I said that it's my hope that Donald Trump, when he's reelected, that his primary focus in his second term is the reduction of the federal government expense. I believe that that's going to be his focal point for the remaining 4 years of his second term. He's going to try and get the federal government's fiscal house in order, which no president has done for a long time.
Dan, I want to ask you in the time remaining, and you've always been really straightforward about countries, governments, etc. When you look at China right now, the cause of this coronavirus, I'm not going to mince words, they were the cause of this problem worldwide with this pandemic. Will they see a minimizing of their value and power in the world from this, or will it empower them to take on greater heights as far as trying to take control of the world? What are your thoughts about China? What's going to happen here?
Great question, and thank you for asking. Yes, I've written about that. Number one, before this coronavirus hit the United States, one of the things that I look on a global basis is I look at each country that I'm considering the possibility of investing in, and I look at the ratio of the debt of the government to gross domestic product. And I like to see one or less. So what we have in the United States prior to this situation, we had a ratio of about 1, so that the GDP of the country was about equal to the gross domestic product of the country. However, if we go to China, and I've written about this several times, the ratio of Chinese debt to GDP is 2.5 to 1, meaning they have $2.50 of debt for every dollar that they generate in gross domestic product. Why is that important? I have written a commentary long ahead of everybody else on this issue that what we need to do is we must understand first that pharmaceuticals are a national security item for us. And for us to have gotten to the point that almost 100% of our prescriptions are manufactured in China was a catastrophic mistake and put us in a national security situation. In fact, we had China say to us a couple of weeks ago, kind of like, if you don't behave, we'll stop sending you your medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the first thing we need to do is to create economic empowerment zones to establishing companies who will begin the manufacture of those pharmaceuticals that we were sending to China and bring that business home. The same thing, too, for surgical and medical supplies. And as it relates to the prescriptions, we had in Puerto Rico some massive facilities that were principal suppliers of pharmaceuticals to the United States, but when they had the hurricanes, they weren't rebuilt, and so that more of that went overseas. I suggest that we probably provide money to rebuild those facilities in Puerto Rico, and as quickly as possible divest ourselves not only of pharmaceuticals and related, but we need a cabinet-level task force to go through all sectors of our economy and to determine where the supply chain coming from China may in fact add a national security risk. And as those supply chains are identified, we need to expand and bring those back home. What's going to happen if we do that, Zeb, is quite simply we're going to bring business back to America, create tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs, and bring our national security in, much like what we did when we were no longer dependent on the Middle East and OPEC for oil. What that's going to mean is that the middle class in China is going to go through an enormous contraction. They're going to see significant decline in their net worth and their assets, and they're going to be very unhappy with the government for what has happened. So I would look for significant turmoil in China because of this. And I also expect that we are leading the way, which will eventually mean that other nations will begin to bring back to their countries the manufacturing that they sent to China.
You know, Dan, it wasn't that many months ago I had a gentleman, and I will not use his name on the program. As a matter of fact, he's not welcome on my show. We got into a great big arbitration about how he wanted to see all agricultural food production stopped exist in the United States and that we import all of our food. I think what's going on right now with this problem with the coronavirus, the medicines being processed in China, our own being self-sufficient with our production of oil and gas, and the greatest ag program anywhere in the world, it should solidify and make it a bona fide fact that without food, without oil, or without medication products, you are subservient to other countries taking over and having power over you. Would you respond to that, please?
Absolutely. You're absolutely, as the British say, spot on. It is something that I believe, Jeb, that the American people are beginning to wake up, because Donald Trump, who told us even before he was running for president that he was very concerned about how much of our economy was dependent upon China to provide the supply chain. I think now that they are beginning to understand what happened when we decided to move our manufacturing jobs to China and what political power that gave China. And I think the president, when he talks about it at his daily press briefings on the updates of the virus, continues to hammer that point home. And it's an important point, and I think more and more people are beginning to understand how vulnerable we are and still are as a nation until we get control of our own destiny.
I want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to come on my show this morning. I wished I had more time. Ladies and gentlemen, retired veteran, nationally recognized expert on foreign policy and author. He's my friend of this program, Dan Perkins. God bless you down in South Florida. Take care and be safe.
Thank you, sir. I'm looking forward to our next visit.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. He tells it like it is, and I really enjoy having him on the program. Dan Perkins, a name that you want to remember. He's very well known in circles of the news media. Appreciate him being on the show. Right now, I got to tell you about Edith's Cafe, and I want to tell you about some of the changes that they're doing to help serve you. At Edith's Cafe, 144 East Highway 81 in Burley, the dining room is open. Also, they provide curbside service where you can call in your orders at 878-2248 and then go pick up your food. And also, at 2500 Washington Avenue across from Fabrical, they've got food trailers set up for the semi-drivers. I think this is great, and it all attests to the great food at Edith's Cafe. Don't forget, they're open Tuesday through Thursday, 11 to 8, Fridays and Saturdays, 11 to 9. They're located at 144 East Highway 81, and they're waiting to serve you with delicious food every day. Edith's Cafe. Don't forget them. Right now, let's go to the weather forecast. Oh, boy, I'm running late again this morning. I got to hurry and gallop. Scarro's Meats. Don Scarrow and the rest of the crew providing the best and the tastiest of meats for you, your family, on any occasion. They're located at 331 North Road, Jerome. Telephone number to call, 324-7657. Or you can go to their website and check out all the delicious meats at scarrowsmeats.com. Absolutely. Whether we're talking all the different bacons or the sausages or the marinated pork ribs, tri-tips, bratwurst. I love bratwurst. All of this and so much more from Scarrow's Meats in Jerome. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Typical spring day for this midweek. Here's a look at what we can expect. Slight chance of rain and or snow showers by the afternoon. Partly sunny skies. A little bit of a breeze. Expecting a high of 46 tonight. Clouds could be rolling in. We are looking at a low of 27. Wind gusts as high as 22 miles an hour. Then for tomorrow, partly sunny skies. Expecting a high of 45. By Friday, mostly sunny and 47. That's a look at your weather forecast for Zeb at the Ranch.
Thank you, Gina. And the weather brought to you by Don Scarrow and the crew at Scarrow's Meats. 331 North Road, Jerome. Number to call, 324-7657. Oh, it's true. They are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. Wow. Excellent program this morning with excellent people on the show. And again, my thanks go out to my dear friend, Senator Kelly Anthon, for literally coming on the program at the last minute to bail me out. And thank you, Kelly. God bless you, man. Super job. We would like to thank our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. And I keep telling you this, and it is oh so true. The safety and the health of their customers and employees is always first and foremost on their mind. And they really have stepped up to the plate. They're cleaning and disinfecting of their businesses, their showrooms, lounges, etc. You can rest assured they're doing all they can to preserve the great business between you and, of course, them. Your Les Schwab Tire Centers, serving you 7 locations here in Magic Valley. And along with all that, they're having a great big spring tire sale right now. You can save a lot of money and get the best of the tires you need for your cars, pickups, SUVs, horse trailers, boat trailers, all the different tread designs, all the sizes, everything. And the best in brake service, front-end alignment, shocks and struts and batteries. Woo! The list goes on. They want you to enjoy safe driving. Stop in and see today Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike in Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Daniel on Poline in Twin Falls, and Trent on Overland in Burley. The best, your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers. We're going to run and say God bless you and have a wonderful day, and be careful out there. It looks like it's still kind of snowy out there by my place out the back window right now. And we'll be back here tomorrow morning at 8:06 on a Thursday. And we always say at the end of the show, the way things were are the way things ought to be. And the 4 words that mean the most: in God we trust. Wheels, you take care of yourself over there. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:06.